Yeah, well, there was a lot of confetti. There was like three times more confetti than any other game. I feel like I've seen confetti.
So I think we all understand that sports business moves pretty quickly, right? People change jobs, get involved with cool stuff, launch new companies. I mean, all kinds of things. So it makes sense every so often to catch up with a previous guest of the Sports Business Conversations podcast. This time, we're catching up with episode 19 guest Jenn Todd, now of the Boston Celtics. You were our guest in episode 19. You had just left the basketball tournament. You were, by your own description, feeling a little bit burned out. I'm wondering if you can just tell me where you ended up.
I've done a lot of reflection on my time off, so I think it's like worth talking a little bit about that because I was really burnt out.
Yeah.
As you know, I was working many different jobs at that, and it was my baby, and I had to figure out how to leave it and leave it feeling good about leaving it.
Right. Something that you vested so much time and energy in.
Yeah. I was very emotionally invested in it, and I'd spent a lot of time and
So good to step away for a bit.
stepped away, took some time to. So I think I've told you this outside of this podcast, but one of a friend of mine, like in just a casual conversation, we were kind of talking about my leaving, and she said, Jen, there's like a lot of growth in the unknown, and that became sort of my motto for my time off, which was like,
it's very zen.
it was awesome. Like it was,
Yeah.
she didn't mean to say it like as a piece of advice, but it was just like, it just stuck with me. And I used that as my motto for the time that I had off. And I tried to think about like one, of course, what I was going to do next, but also enjoying the time that I had because it's really rare to have that kind of time. And I was, obviously really grateful to have it too and be able to do that. But I tried to talk to someone new every week. I made some really good relationships and friendships with people in the industry and outside the industry. And anyway, it ultimately led me to, I had a conversation I got crossed paths with earlier from the Celtics, called me and told me this job was opening up. So I'm now at Celtics. I manage 4 groups there, 3 partnerships groups and youth basketball. So pre-sale strategy, partner development, which is our activation group, our events group. So I don't manage the sales piece. And then youth basketball, which I think is because TBT, felt like was a startup. We've kind of reinvented Junior Celtics over the last few years. That began before I got there, but just taking that entrepreneurial kind of vision and applying it to youth basketball at the Celtics as well.
You said something earlier when you were talking about the pause you took, that there's a lot of growth in the unknown. And I find it fascinating too, because you were a competitive gymnast, right? You have this streak of go. What's next? What's the things that I'm going to achieve? What's going to be the next accomplishment? I think there's a hard driving kind of quality to anybody who's participated in athletics and been in startup environments like that. It's not easy to take your hand off the throttle and do that reflection, but it sounds like not only did you find the strength to have that unknown, but also had the smarts to use that time wisely, which led to the current role at the Celtics. You said that was somebody you met during that period of time where you had the chance to reflect.
The growth part is like, I think so I recently was reading a note I made to myself. Sometimes I listen to podcasts and I
hope
take
so.
a little like yours specifically. And
it's the top of the
and
list.
the little tidbits I get, I just make a little, note to myself. And someone was talking about like a learn it all culture versus a know it all culture. And I think I'm always like trying to constantly learn. I think that I feel like I'm fulfilled if I'm learning, if like a job is good for me, if I'm learning. If I feel stagnant or I already know how to do it or whatever it is, then that's where I stop feeling sort of fulfilled.
So you joined the Celtics at, I would say, a rather fortuitous timing on your part. I think probably everybody who works in sports at one time or another kind of envisions that moment where the team they're working for wins the championship. And that is exactly what happened. I mean, you joined the Celtics, and then literally the next full season, they win it all. So for a lot of people out there, can you explain what that's like when the confetti goes off for the first time and you have that NBA champion and sort of played a role in how that all came together? What's that like from your perspective? What was that moment like?
It's sort of funny because I feel like people have asked me that and not asked me that. But first of all, I didn't really I didn't leave TBT envisioning that I was going to go work for a team or for the Celtics. So that mindset of working for my hometown team, because I grew up in Western Mass, right? And potentially winning a championship. Like, I didn't go into any of it thinking that that's kind of that was really even.
Really, I'm only joining a team if they're on the precipice of a championship. That was not exactly that wasn't how you pursued it.
I guess it just wasn't I knew it was a possibility because I knew the team was good, but I didn't really think that far ahead, right? And for good or bad. And there's a lot of people at the Celtics who were there in 2008 when we last won. And as we kind of got closer and it seemed like more of a possibility, they said, you know what, Jen, just try to really soak it in. Try to be really present in this moment, because there's so many little moments. Okay, when you win a series deciding game, or there's many other steps, but when the confetti is actually falling, just try to be really present in the moment, know where you were.
Did you find that difficult to have that centeredness?
A little, because there's a lot going on, right? Yeah. There's a lot going on during the playoffs. There's still an organization having to put games on and, coordinate on a big, what's truly just a big event, right? And, we've got partners that are obviously really excited, and we're trying to manage them through all their playoff activations and things like that. So there's still business going on. It feels like the moment stops, but that was the other feeling I sort of had during the championship, was this is a culmination of a lot of work by a lot of people. And I hope everybody else can feel that too, because there's a lot of people that are behind the scenes, and it's easy for me to say because I'm one of them, but it's there's a lot of people behind the scenes doing a lot of work to make sure that the team on the court can perform the way they want and need to. It was funny because afterwards people would be like, oh, hey, congratulations on the championship. And I was like, well, I wasn't holding basketball, you know what I mean? So it's whatever. There are a lot of people, not just affiliated with the team or work for the team, that do a lot to make sure that we could win.
Did you have a moment where you took a step back and went, okay, this is pretty cool?
Yeah, well, there was a lot of confetti. It was
you're just glad you weren't pushing a broom that day.
More confetti than any other game I've seen confetti.
The bar has been set.
It was hard not to feel the excitement in the arena. It was awesome to win at home. The game 4 was tough, right? But and we were all in Dallas for that. But it was so awesome to win at home. And of course, again, behind the scenes, there's you're thinking about the parade and you're thinking about all these other things that need to be planned. But it was I really tried to take to heart the advice of try to really enjoy it before, as you said, you're kind of thinking about the next thing and moving on and always go, go, go.
You also just experienced another kind of iconic moment in a championship, because we're recording this just a few days after the home opener. And the banner, number 18, gets lifted to the rafters, which is, again, sort of that iconic moment that everybody wants to work in sports. It kind of offers the bookend to that championship experience. And is there a similar sort of sensation that you feel when you're in the arena and the lights go dark and there's a spotlight on that banner as it goes up?
Yeah, I think the banner raising it's so symbolic. And it's, I think it was probably the more emotional. I guess sort of speaking for myself, but also seemingly what I heard from other people was more emotional than the rings necessarily. But yeah, there were people crying, lots of people crying in the stands. It's just so meaningful. It's on the flip side, it was 3 months ago that we won the championship, and a lot has happened even since then. With regard to the championship and not. So not to say that it feels like ancient history, but it was a while ago. So it was nice to come back again, be present, try to celebrate it. I think that I don't want to speak for the team, but I think there's also like looking forward to this season, right? And it's
Yeah,
opening
what's
night for a
past is
new
past, and it's time
season.
to go.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's get it
So it's sort of
going.
balancing those two feelings.
So the other thing that's happened since we last talked is there has been what feels like an almost sea change in women's sports. And obviously you have a deep, extensive history in women's sports, one of the litigants in the original Title IX lawsuit that went against Brown University. And so you've been there sort of more or less at the, not the origin of it all, but really at some of the most momentous moments associated with the growth of women's sports. And if you look at where we are now, right, there's huge media numbers. You know, the new leagues are popping up, expansion teams. You know, Caitlin Clark happened since we last talked. I'm wondering, you know, as someone who's always had her eye on women's sports and the growth of it, your thoughts about this moment.
I have felt so a couple things. You know, I obviously work for a men's team and or a team full of men. And I feel sometimes a little bit like I'm standing on the sideline of like this sea change and this movement. And I honestly maybe feel a little bit sad about that. But I'm so happy and overjoyed every day that women are sort of getting their due, that they're on TV more, that it's like slightly less hard to be a women's sports fan, that you can find them on TV, that people are watching, that individual players are getting their due. And I love that. I feel like maybe I always knew it was going to happen, but thankfully it's happening. I have figured out ways to impact girls and women from where I am. And I almost didn't realize that in this position I would be able to do that as much as I have been able to do that. You know, we have not only putting pieces in place around that, you know, as I said, like the all girls programming or speaking to groups of women, but this is a platform, and I'd be lying if it isn't, right? I mean, if I said it wasn't.
Right. The NBA does bring a certain amount of weight to the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. So I feel like I'm fulfilled enough on that front because I'm learning a lot of other things through this job. But you know, maybe one day I would like to get to jump into it all. But we'll see.
Jenn, Todd, it's great to catch up.
Always great to talk to you, Dave.